There we go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Sunday morning, and it's talking about the transits with Lulu and Teri. Welcome, welcome. We do this every Sunday morning, theoretically live, where we come up, we look at the week ahead's transits, and then we do a tarot card, pull a tarot card for each sign, and do a intuitive reading for each rising sign. So if you don't know your rising sign, you'll want to go to any one of the free birth calculators on the internet. You just need your exact time and location of birth in order to determine that information. I'm going to give the room a little moment to, oh, there's somebody in the room. Welcome, welcome. Before I start the broadcast, we have got Lulu's DNA results in. So, and we have a winner. So I'm going to announce that. And then periodically, I don't know. Yes, girl, are you comfy? You want to get down? Okay, I'll let you get down. There you go. I'm just kind of giving it a minute for the room to fill up a little bit so that I don't repeat. Hi, Sissy Pups. Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you. Good morning, small wildflowers. Good to see you. I'm kind of giving the room a little minute to warm up. We have an interesting new moon this week, so I might start talking about the transits and then I'll make the announcement about Lulu. I was going to do that first, but I'll just maybe do it before we start the readings, because I think it's an interesting week. Not just week. The transits that are going on right now are just, yes, CC Pups, we the more prayer, the better. That's all I can say about everything. You know, the universe is listening, and I believe that the transits are supporting the human to have an experience to see that their focused thought will manifest. And prayer is a form of focused thought. So, and I think that just leads me right into Saturn and Neptune, okay? Because Saturn and Neptune are at the tail end of Pisces right now, with Saturn being about 25 degrees, and Neptune has been stationed at 29 degrees of Neptune for the longest time. And that anaretic degree is so powerful because it's really commanding and almost demanding mastery of the signs, qualities, and traits. So if we look at Pisces, there's a large energy of transcendence, of actually understanding from a divine point of view what disruption, what potential, what feels like erosion, limitation, restrictions, responsibilities, duties, the planets that are the qualities that Saturn is representing in Pisces right now. How are we managing those? How are we managing those through the lens of opportunity? Because the soul cannot experience its power without being challenged on some level. That's the whole reason that we incarnate. We don't incarnate for lessons. We don't incarnate to pay penance. We incarnate to create, to feel the journey of creation, which is not necessarily always an easy one. When you think about anything you're endeavoring, there is always an inherent challenge in creation, whether you're trying to create a job, create a lifestyle, create a child, create a piece of art, create a cake, So I think that's important to remember, that those challenges aren't designed to trip us, punish us, test us, but rather give us opportunities to feel our power. So our powers of co-creation. So that takes me right back to prayer. Because whenever we are praying, we are putting focused thought into the universe. And, while I have no evidence as to whether the universe is, an actual being known as God, but there's something out there, and this is going to lead me right into the new moon. There's something out there that is responding to our thoughts. And I believe a lot of that's the law of the universe, and the many universal laws that are inherent and unchanging. So now the new moon is at 28 degrees of Sagittarius this week. It will be on the 19th here in the Pacific time zone at 28 degrees of Sagittarius. The galactic center is at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. We're looking at Venus being conjunct, still moving through Sagittarius. She'll be at 24 degrees. And Mars will be at 3 degrees Capricorn. Mars moving into Capricorn on the 15th, tomorrow. And Mars is in its exaltation. So I think that this is very powerful because Mars in its exaltation of Capricorn being conjunct this new moon is asking us to be brave enough not only to, okay, let me back up for a second. Having this new moon on the galactic center provides an opportunity to connect with spirit and to trust the subtle thoughts, inspirations, feelings that are coming through that are downloads, they're information from the universe as to how to move forward to wherever you want to go, whatever you want to experience, whether it be a new environment, a new sense of your health. We're looking at the nodes as well here. Being able to say to the universe and plant the seeds in faith that I'm saying, okay, God in the universe, I want to expand my work. I want to feel more flow with my resources. And in doing so, I am now tasking the universe in this new moon to provide me with solutions, information, inspirations that will put me into action. And then that's where I'm going now to Mars flanking this moon, because Mars is about pioneering spirit, right? It's about being brave in an endeavor at its higher vibration. Now, when it's in exaltation, it's brave to strategize, to implement Capricornian, Saturnian elements into this manifestation. Now we have Venus on the other side of this new moon, making herself known in do I believe in myself enough? Do I have enough self-worth, to attract the resources that I need? There's so many things about Venus that pertain to our everyday emotional experience. So I think that being aware of this, and I for me, this is all coming about resources. Mars in Capricorn is about building something stronger. Venus in Sagittarius is grabbing onto that inspiration that I receive. I am the feminine. I am the co-creator. So I think there's a great opportunity here to almost sit in meditation and put a directive into the universe. Now, the challenge here is this new moon is going to square Saturn and Neptune. So in that square, there is again this duality. Will I be able to withstand the pressure of living in an environment that tells me that things are getting more and more restrictive as I myself want to feel more and more expansive and more flow? We also see this new moon making a quincunx to Jupiter retrograde and to Uranus retrograde. Jupiter in Taurus, Jupiter in Cancer and Uranus in Taurus. I think these are important because this new moon is tasking us in such a big way to put an intention out into the universe and then hold it lightly. It's almost like letting it go. The amount of faith that's going to be required to follow the inspirations during this time could feel monumental. It could feel huge. We also have Mercury squaring the nodes during this new moon. So Mercury squaring the nodes being points of fate and destiny, where I want to move my soul to and where my habits have been. My habits have been in Virgo to try to think my way through it, to problem solve myself. And this new moon is sort of tasking me to say to the universe, I need the solutions to be downloaded. I need them to come through my meditations, come through I see something on TV and I'm like, oh my gosh, there it is. I need that, or I want to move in that direction, or this inspires me here. This is really an important point of putting direction into this new moon and then completely letting it go and then trusting the weirdest little musings that come into your head. oh, I should do this, or I should walk down that street. I know it sounds odd and crazy, but that's how it plays out to me. Sagittarius by nature, the sign itself, the traveler, right? The spiritual traveler, the connection to the angelic realm. Now, while it's squaring Saturn and Neptune, this is where it feels like the human experience is the push-pull. Logic will say that this can't happen. Logic will say that that's not realistic, that's not practical. And the challenge is enduring that logic is changing. And things that are happening to you right now are the decomposing and the deconstruction of old structures that are actually limiting you and holding you small. Hold on, what's going on here? I got to check out. I mean, I'm so distracted by the chat. What happened? You had a CT scan? Oh my goodness, what is going on? Oh my God, are you kidding? You broke the toilet with your head? You're joking, right? Did you give yourself a concussion? I'm kind of confused what's going on. Everybody's falling apart around here. Everybody's just falling and hurting themselves and going. That's Virgo. That's absolutely the South Node going through Virgo right now. So we have to be more mindful and more careful and more present. Oh my goodness. Okay. Holy scamoli, everybody. I recently was able to go to Trader Joe's for the first time in a million years, and I bought a bunch of stuff and put it in the freezer. And I'll tell you, I'll never do that again, because my body is not responding well to the frozen food at all. So we really get to be mindful of what we're eating. Milk thistle is great for the liver, absolutely. Celery juice is really a place to start for everything, I gotta tell you, because it starts to get rid of that detox. Ginger for inflammation. If you're feeling sluggish, cayenne pepper will not burn the inside of your body, but it will get your blood moving. All right, let's I'm going to give the results of Lulu's DNA test, everybody. Are you ready? We had a winner, and I have emailed her and let her know. She won with guessing 2 of the 6 different breeds that Lulu is. And none of the ones that we guessed, many of us guessed similar things, and she's not a terrier mix, she's not a Maltese, she's not a Havanese. She is 37.7% poodle. She is 28.7% Chihuahua. She is 10.2% Shih Tzu. She is 10.1% Pomeranian. She is 7.9% Cocker Spaniel and 5.4% Pekingese. She is a true and blessed mutt, and I'm so proud. She's done a big turn this week. I think she knows that this is, she's finally settling into home, and she's happy, and she's pretty chill. So I got to say, she's been doing zoomies on my bed and rolling on her back on the floor in the living room. So it's been very joyous that way. The liver is a regenerative organ. Remember that. So when you put a little love on the liver, you will find that it will respond. I also want to bring up, since you're talking about it, Barbara O'Neill. She has a book called Sustain Me. This is not a paid sponsorship by any means, but how do you bust the toilet bowl with your head? My God, like how old was the toilet to begin with? Because I would think you would bust your head with the toilet bowl instead of the toilet bowl. But in any case, Barbara O'Neill has a liver cleanse. You can, it's a shot you do in the mornings. I think it's done over a 7-day period of time with olive oil and garlic and orange. Ginger's in it. I can't recall exactly, but if you Google her and you look for her liver cleanse, you can find it on the internet. I would be interested to know what Pluto was doing for you and how Pluto was transiting, because Pluto and Uranus are making aspects. Pluto would rule a toilet in your house. She drove into it like a linebacker. Why did you fall out of the bathtub? I mean, how do you drive your head into the toilet? It's not joking at all. Brand new toilet got placed. Oh, right. I've had that seal thing yeah, you can't use it. That instantly makes me have to go to the bathroom endlessly. So she'd never seen a straight or spine, which was Well, I don't know. I'm completely lost by the whole Lucy Rose thing. If you fell into the toilet and broke the toilet, I just don't know how you did that. Like, did you slip in the bathroom? I can't even imagine how much that freaking hurt. Anyway, all right. We're going on to our readings. Poor people in playback. No wonder people don't watch my videos. There's so much. Takes so long to get. Oh, tell you one other funny thing about the DNA test, if y'all want to, a little bit light. In the DNA test, they give you the closest relatives. And Lulu's number one closest relative, sharing 19% of her DNA, is a dog named Hunter. Get it? Teri Hunter. How random is that? How much of a sign from the universe is that? Pretty big, if you ask me. All right, are we ready to do our readings? Take advantage of this new moon, people. There's opportunity through your meditations to be inspired with ideas and solutions, or at least the beginning of solutions to some of our issues, because there's a lot of them going on. I completely have food to me is poison. Like, I notice more than ever, I don't have issues because I drank or something like that. It'll be when I eat too much cheese or too much dairy. And then all of a sudden I feel like I'm like one big mucus ball and I can't breathe. I absolutely, because I don't drive anymore, haven't been to Trader Joe's in forever. And I stocked up on stuff that I don't normally have. And what it's done to my poor joints. So my goal is we're just at the end of the year. Come January, I'm going to go back to what I did last year, which was I did dry January just to do it. And that ended up lasting 4 months. So I felt so much better. And then the shit hit the fan and the rest of the year sucked ass, pardon my language. And I kind of gave up and I gave in to comfort food and things that, too much salt, too much dairy, too much chips, these kind of things that make me feel like you can eat them when you're little, but you can't eat them when you're older. So I'm going to go and do a full cleanse, because I think with the South Node in the last degrees of Virgo, however this is hitting your chart, for us to walk through whatever we're walking through, we need to have our bodies light so that spirit can inhabit them. We don't think about the idea that when we go to McDonald's and when we eat foods that are highly processed, we are making our body so dense that it makes it harder for us to connect to spirit or connect to the parts of ourself that aren't inhabiting this physical experience. So for your ease, for your sense of purpose, like there must be some purpose to all the crap we're going through. All right, here we go. Yeah, she seems a little bit behind. Yes, and do that, that little shot, I actually think it tastes good. It tastes like an orange Julius to me. I don't know why. So those are the things I'm going to start doing and re-implementing, because I don't want to paint. I don't like a rickety body, I'm just not good with it. I can't believe the toilet, man. Your toilet was really old when you hit it. It was 2003. My toilet is from 2003. Maybe longer, for all I know. All right. I'm going to be a professional now, and I'm going to start with Sagittarius. I want to wish Sagittarius that are having a birthday this week happy birthday. I also want to continue to mention the new moon. If your birthday is this week, this new moon is so powerful, being conjunct the galactic center. Again, the galactic center is the tightest orb. So any planets within 1 to 3 degrees of 27 degrees of Sagittarius are going to be very powerful to support your connection to spirit. Now, your job is to trust some of those connections. Let's see what your tarot card is this week. And it is the Chariot. The Chariot is the Cancer energy, but it's the moon energy. It's the connection to the stars. There is a push-pull energy because being in the human experience, there are certain things that are considered practical and realistic, and certain actions that the crowd will tell you take in order to manifest. And yet spirit will say, before you take those actions, be aware of your emotional body. The armor on this particular warrior, there are feathers, which indicate messages from heaven. The moons flank his shoulders, which is that emotional connection, that intuitive connection. We see the yin-yang sign. So we know inherently that there is a need for there to be contrast on this planet. And our job is to drive that contrast with intention. So that's what I think. And I also think that there is a element of victory that I would like to when I'm looking at the card, I'm almost being distracted because all of a sudden I see Saturn and Pisces sign, and then there's Venus, and then there's a conjunction sign. And I feel like this card is suddenly saying that everything is working out in a way that you may not understand right now. And the next year could be very powerful for you, talking about your solar return and your ruling planet. While it's retrograde right now in Cancer, which rules the Chariot, it's also going to move into Leo, and it's going to come up on the South Node. They're going to cross over at some point in the next year and a half. I've got to look that up. And I think there's going to be something very powerful about the erosion of the ego out of balance and yet expanding the creative self. Leo is the leader. So for my Sagittariuses, this particular new moon could very well inspire you into actions and into ideas and into maybe even into a pause. Could be spirit saying it's not time to take action. It's time to just sit back and be aware of your emotional body. All right, let's see where we're going with the reading. Yeah, a little like button. Lucy, you just finished a Candida cleanse. Did the cleanse make you fall into the toilet? Hi, MK. All right, Sagittarius, we have Celeste, we have Bridget, we have Opal, and finally we have Isabella. Celeste is about a move to a new home or a new place of employment, and having the Chariot be sitting here as well, there could be very much, during this holiday season, the sense of home. And I almost want to say it's not a location, it's a feeling. And to be aware of how you and who you spend time with and how that makes you feel at home. And home being a safe, secure, loving environment. Joining Celeste is the Grail Knight. Upside down, we have the Queen joining Bridget. We have Opal being joined by the Raven reversed. And then we have the Mystery card upside down joining Isabella. The Grail Knight is about seeking the sacred. It's about bowing down to something that is the truest level of your heart and what you honor. There's also an element of illusion here. And having the Grail Knight being upside down, I feel like I'm looking at illusion. And I need to, for my Sagittarius, I need to look at, or I have an opportunity to look at some sort of duality. Something is pulling me in two different directions. And yet at the same time, there's a part of me that already knows truly what my heart wants, but it may be in conflict with somebody else or another situation. Because Bridget is look deeper into your ability to receive right now, to sit in this queenly co-creation. Because somewhere I think the timing is off for something. I think that, yes, a decision should be made, but it needs to be made with more, or a choice, a line of action, but it gets to be made with a bigger question. Do I really want this? Is this really authentic to my heart? Or am I somehow giving up my power or being, cooperative in a way that I'm not like, it's almost like going into a situation and let's just say you were going to go to dinner with somebody and yesterday you had pizza and the other person's like, oh my God, I'm so craving pizza. And you go, oh, okay, I'll have pizza, but you really don't want it. So then you want to make sure you go to an Italian restaurant where you don't have to order pizza instead of just going to a pizza joint. I know that's a weird analogy because in the angel's advice is God is saying you are a child of God, but something's off. Something is off. The magic is off. The timing is not right for something. That's all I know. Wait, more information is going to come through because Isabella is saying in general, yes, whatever you're working on, whatever you're contemplating, whether it be a new job, a new home, a new line of thought, but look at how you're making your choice. There's an underbelly to the choice. And with your planet being retrograde in Cancer, your ruling planet, Jupiter, I think it's about looking to see if whatever you're endeavoring is really going to offer you the expansion, the joy, the abundance, and the flow. I almost feel like the whole retrograde period of Jupiter is about, in every encounter, in every crossroad, in every moment of indecision, the question is this expanding me? Will this move me in the directions I want to experience? Does this support my faith and my beliefs? And then if it does, then move forward. If it doesn't, pause. And especially because if it is indeed your solar return this week, then you're up on this new moon. This new moon is conjunct the galactic center and it's flanked by Mars and Venus. So with Mars being in Capricorn, this is about Mars taking strategic action. Mars is in its highest vibration here where it's most able to operate in that hero energy. And Venus, still being in Sagittarius, gets to expand what she believes about what she can create. So that's really kind of good. All right, let's move on to our Capricorns, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. I know. I say I know, but we have been conditioned to do so. I'm trying to break certain habits, like the Amazon habit, right? It's like if I don't get an Amazon package every other day, something's not right. I don't need half the Amazon packages I get. So there's just some things that I don't want to go into scarcity, but I want to retrain my brain. Exactly. Boredom, shopping and boredom is not or shopping because you're bored is not a good idea either. Oh, let's do our Capricorn Tarot card. We will see Saturn and Neptune come conjunct around February 2026. And while I have not been personally preparing as well as I would like to be, because financially, with Lucky leaving and Lulu coming in and redoing the whole floors and all of that, it's kind of put me on hippo eyes. And so the reason I bring this up is because each one of us is going to experience some sort of restriction that's going to call upon us to look at how we are creating our flow within that genre or within that topic. Because I feel like I'm not going into the new year in scarcity, but I am going in wanting to implement new habits. And I know authentically that I'm not lying to myself, meaning I'm not really in scarcity and then pretending I'm not. I know that I'm having a transit that's having me really look at fine-tuning and perfecting my 5th house of Virgo, which is work for me and pleasure. And then it's obviously compelling me to stretch for a spiritual dynamic in implementing that. Knowing that Saturn's coming into Aries and Neptune, this conjunction is going to be very intense. And then as 2026 continues on, Saturn's going to move away from Neptune. So this period of time after the retrograde, I think, is about rebuilding with awareness. I think it's about literally saying in every endeavor, Spirit, if this broadens me, if this brings me closer to what I want to experience, if this represents the truth of my soul, then open the door. If it doesn't, let me walk out effortlessly. Because that's what Saturn's been doing in Pisces. It's only wants sustainable goods, sustainable endeavors, things that are being built to last. All right, Capricorn, speaking of you, as Mars enters your sign, you're going to feel energized. And our tarot card for Capricorn is the 7 of Cups. This is the duality of emotion. When you see it in the traditional Rider-Waite deck, there's a character that almost looks like a magician. He's shadowed. And each cup represents something that we want and yet the price you might pay for it. Oftentimes I focus in on the victory wreath, and then there's a skull as well. So in order to win, someone must die. The 7 of Cups represents an abundance of choices, emotional choices that have a consequence. And the peace dove here in the middle lies in the unknown, this big black circle. So for my Capricorn, Sagittarius is your 12th house. The opportunity to plant the seeds for something bigger for you, something that's more aligned to your evolution. We know that Pluto has moved into your 2nd house, and that's potential to make money, potential to use your craft, to feel yourself, be the co-creator, to stoke your confidence in your skills. So I think that here for this week, Spirit is bringing into your awareness that emotions are duplistic. They're not, you aren't going to feel peace because something happens. It's going to be how you process that. And that's sitting in some respects, sitting in the dark, sitting in the, if I know that there's an emotional contrast or conflict. And the only way you'll find peace is to not try to take action on it and allow a little bit to play out. And it may have something to do with you personally. That's the way it's coming across. It's like you may want something, and yet your duty, your obligation, what you think you should be responsible for could feel in conflict to that. And in the pause, the peace, the dove in the middle, there could be something revealed to you. So let's go. Ooh, I just got chills everywhere. All right, Capricorn, let's see. We have Azure, but she's reversed. We have Caressa straight up. We have Oceana. And finally, Indriel. Now, Azure is a card where you're going to get what you want, but she's upside down. So here, I think that this is going to end up showing me that there is a moment of emotional indecision or unsureness, that somehow Capricorn goes through this period where they're, well, if I do this, then I'm going to pay this price. And if I do that, then there's going to be this consequence. And maybe that, when you rethink what outcome you really want, something bigger happens. Because here, this would indicate that your desire is not going to happen from your perspective. Because Caressa is also saying there's an end of a chapter. Oceana is looking at an emotional dynamic, which plays back to the Seven of Cups. And now Indriel, the light worker here. So let's see how this plays. Now we have the burden card. Okay. So Azure is saying your desired outcome. There's still the burden. Capricorn, rules burden. The beasts of burden that build the home, that help, erect the structures, that drag the wood from one place to another, the oxen, the horses, on some level. When I look at this, I feel like you're burdened because your emotional body is in conflict to something that has to do with an outside responsibility. Then we have Caressa being joined by the Queen. This is really the end of a chapter. Could potentially be. I need to keep going before I start. We have the Novice upside down joining Oceana, and we have Indriel being joined by the Risk card reversed. All right. This Caressa being at the end of a chapter is actually not I wish I was communicating better. It's time, Capricorn, to stand as the queen who knows how to receive what she needs and wants. It's time to start to look at your world your emotional world as valid, viable, and of importance. And rather than walking through duty constantly or responsibility or limiting yourself in the way of joy and emotional satisfaction, because there's a bigger responsibility on the other line, it's time to end that chapter. That's what this feels like it's saying. Oceana and the Novice talking about a new beginning. Spirit is literally saying to look at your emotional body, to rise up to your own transcendence. That if you're doing something and you're responsible to it, great. But if you're doing it out of duty, if it's arduous, if you're endeavoring things that are built on burden, then maybe it's time to rethink it. Because there is no risk. This is the beauty of having the Risk card upside down in standing in your transformed light. Spirit will support that. And this might be where the ghost of Christmas past comes in. And this is all kind of how you're processing. Because as Saturn has moved direct again, Saturn is going, your ruling planet. What am I responsible to? And Saturn's moving into the sign of self. So it's literally commanding you to reframe yourself and how you see your emotional body, and how fueling your emotional body could actually feed your responsibilities in a more succinct way versus, to me, the beast of burden is going to burn out at some point. So when I end up looking at my responsibilities with joy and with love, and I'm feeding myself at the same time, then it changes the vibration. I felt like Lucy Rose was literally, I haven't used the cards in a while, and they've come back in a big way. It feels like I'm trying to, on some level, I'm recalibrating, but also going back and building on some of the seeds. It's almost like pruning a garden. And these were in the back of the garden, and now they've been pruned, and now they're coming back in a stronger way. The transits are so incredibly hard right now. I mean, Uranus is moving, retrograde in Taurus, but when it moves into Gemini, not only is this time going to speed up and things are going to start moving so incredibly quickly, we're going to revisit some things from history. The last 3 times that Uranus, well, not the last 3 times, but Uranus was in Gemini during the American Revolution. Uranus was in Gemini during the Civil War in the United States, and Uranus was in Gemini during World War II in the 40s. And I'm not saying that we're going to have war, but there is going to be a division of some kind. With Pluto making aspects to Uranus, something's going to die, and something's going to be compelled to move forward, to innovate, and I think those are going to be a lot of structures that we're used to that are actually antiquated and don't serve us. So our preparation for that comes in the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Building our house on spiritual practices. All right, let's look at our Aquarius, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. I think the thing that I think is so out of balance is the powerlessness. When I look at, I watch a lot of TV and I fast forward through commercials, but almost every commercial that I do see, it's somehow disempowering my ability. My body's going to fall apart. My money's going to fall apart. My car is going to get hit by some random guy named Mayhem. I better have that insurance. You've all seen that shit. My favorite commercial right now is the Amazon commercial that they do at Christmas with the 3 old ladies, and they're watching the kids toboggan down this little slope in the neighborhood. And then she goes to Amazon and buys cushions, and then the 3 of them slide down, and then they go back, and if you see the long version, they fade back to their younger selves. That's my favorite commercial, and I wish those are the only commercials that were allowed on TV. We have to be discerning now. We can't, I love that commercial so much. It's literally the only one I'll watch, and I almost cry when I see it. The joy as they close their eyes when they're coming down, holding their hands up. So cute. But we're reclaiming I really believe that thought, that the revolution will not necessarily be war, but will be the human itself discerning in such a way that no longer become susceptible to the fear factor. We've learned to inspire through fear. And I think that Saturn and Neptune have been compelling us to motivate through inspiration and to have the discipline and the tenacity to continue on through this. It feels like a headwind of fear that's being stoked constantly. And that's where I think the real war will come from. It will end up being that humans can evolve past the limitations that have been put on us, and they'll thrive through internet endeavors, people becoming more influential as individuals through their opinions, and structures that are traditionally where we have gone. Like you see a lot of newscasters or people who have, started their own podcasts that are, going against the old systems of things and creating new ones. So this is all what's going to happen. And I think that's really where we're going to see Uranus bringing in wild new thoughts. Obviously, aviation will also take a big jump somehow. And that's where I think the flying car is going to show up. We're going to go from the car that drives around by itself to the car that flies around by itself. All right. Aquarius, here we go. I said Aquarius an hour ago, I know. But and I want to say this because as I'm looking at the first house of Aquarius and I'm watching Pluto go through it, I feel like Pluto is saying to me that I'm really here to work in concert with you, to work for your benefit, to bring the abundance that, the idea that Pluto sits in your first house, it's not just bringing up toxicity, it's bringing up power and control, and how much power and control you actually have when it comes to your focus and your direction. If you think about the idea of Aquarius being ruled by not only Uranus, but even more importantly, Saturn, because Uranus has only been around for, discovered, I think, back in the 70s, maybe I'm wrong, but Saturn's influence here with the Aquarian flair is so incredibly important. It is that, am I willing to be tenacious? Am I willing to be responsible to my own vision of what I want for myself and who and what I want to be? And this is why I think Pluto is so important, because Pluto is going to offer you opportunities to see where there's imbalance. 1771 Uranus was developed or was discovered. That's interesting. Maybe I must be thinking of Pluto must have in 1977 wasn't, maybe it was Pluto that was discovered in 1977. All right, let me look at the card. Aquarius. Here's the Four of Swords, but it's reversed. This is an interesting dynamic because when it's straight up, it is about rest. It's about being, protected and nourished. So here you could feel very lack of rest, a lack of protection, a lack of abundance, a lack of flow. Let's see what Spirit has to say about this. Well, interestingly, too, because if Uranus was discovered on March 13th, 1771, the United States American Revolution, actually, the rumblings of it started in 1754, and it was about a 20-year cycle before the actual declaration and war began. And that would have put Pluto traversing through Sagittarius. So there would have been a breakdown. Wait, let me think. Pluto through Capricorn. So there would have been that breakdown of the old structures that England was representing and the taxes they were imposing upon the settlers. And then when it moved into Aquarius is when the actual revolution started. So this is why I think if we look back on Pluto's transit through Capricorn, the great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn in Capricorn. This is all, we're teeing up for something. So we might not even see it right away. All right. The first angel is Teresa, and she's upside down as well. And she talks about self-care. Oceana is about your emotional body. Cards are sticky because they're old. Azure is saying, yes, it's time to pay attention. Oh, maybe here Spirit's asking you to kind of step into a more relaxed energy versus, with Uranus ruling the nervous system and Saturn coming direct, you could be feeling, because there's a weird feeling of, in a low vibration, Saturn's late degrees in Pisces could be stoking unconscious fears, stoking this feeling of getting in your own way. Now we're looking at that being your 12th, Capricorn's your 12th house. You could have this really interesting kind of subliminal thing going on where you feel like you cannot rest right now. You feel the rumblings of something. I think that's indicated by this Four of Swords being upside down. Teresa is also upside down. So this is about paying attention to the people around you. This is about checking in with your own emotional body. And yes, it's time to start to check into, I think for Aquarius, and I don't really want to negate the seriousness of mental health and of the chronic anxiety that humans experience right now. But Spirit has shown me repeatedly that anxiety is your soul trying to alert you that you somehow are moving in the wrong direction. Because Bridget's encouraging you to look deeper. Let's see where we're going. And again, I'm not negating anxiety, but I think there's certain ways that we can, stop and breathe and then do a self-check. Welcome, Georgia. All right, Teresa is being joined by the Wealth card. Interesting. We have Oceana being joined by the Focus card, but it is upside down. We have Azure being joined by the Owl, which is also upside down. And then finally, we have Bridget being joined by the Love card. For my Aquarian rising, what I am saying here is that you could feel unprotected this week. You could feel very vulnerable. You could feel like there's not enough resources. It's time to really check in with yourself rather than with other people. What am I endeavoring? The Wealth card is harmonious wealth. It's not a money card for me. It's a card of feeling balance in a variety of genres of my life. Oceana is saying you're not focused on your emotional body. You're focused on something outside of you that's feeling a little, it almost makes me feel unprotected, a little bit powerless. And Spirit is saying you need to discern a little bit. You need to look. It's time. There's a little shadow side to the Aquarian energy, because that feeling of exile, of feeling, the genius is, above the normal thinking. So they tend to have a different experience, or they have, there's a certain amount of isolation and alienation. So I really think what Spirit is talking about is checking in with yourself, checking in with old habits of feeling, old habits of way of being. Are things shifting? Am I really not as protected? Am I aware of my emotional needs? Because the final position is Bridget asking you to look deeper into love. And I don't think this is intimate love. I think it's self-love. I think it's how you process love. It's how you feel loved and valued. So you might want to be very gentle with yourself this week. And I also want to offer this because with Sagittarius being technically your 11th house, really checking into your hopes and desires. You rule that 11th house naturally. So when we see, Aquarius rising and then activity happening in your natural 11th house, how do I process self-love? Because sometimes self-love is just being gentle with yourself when you're off your game, not expecting to be 100% of the time. We're all susceptible to highs and lows and moments of feeling depressed or feeling, am what I doing? Is what I am doing and producing in the world worthy, So be mindful and be gentle with yourself. That Pluto transit is not easy. I mean, it's kind of, it can have a big payoff, but not, you work for it, man. It's not just dropped in your lap. All right, let's go on to our Pisces. Go easy on the self, exactly. And that's where I think that South Node kind of kicks in, because wherever Virgo is in your charts, you're going to feel the potentials for self-criticism, perfectionism, having to fix things. And then the South Node is exasperating that, almost asking to surrender what you perceive needs to be fixed. And let the universe do it for you, I guess, All right, Pisces, let's look and see what this tarot card for you this week is, because you're ruling planets. And I say planets because Jupiter also rules you. Jupiter's retrograde in Cancer, which trines you. And I think actually when I think about it, there's a nice trine between Jupiter right now and Saturn. So there's expansion being supported by spiritual structure building. And then Neptune is not far off in that. So There's also sort of like, I'm getting intuitively for Pisces to be mindful of the trine between between Jupiter and Neptune could really expand a feeling of invisibility or the challenging sides. Again, Neptune's at that anaretic degree. So there's a weird feeling of flopping between two fish, one that feels strong and faithful and one that feels like I'm swimming in the dark. So be gentle with yourself during that. Let's see what your card is. No, I'm gonna reshuffle. I just don't buy. That was the Four of Swords again, upside down. I don't buy it. I need to shuffle. Your sun as in S-O-N or your S-U-N? I do too. Chiron is conjunct my ascendant. I have Neptune and Saturn coming into conjunction with my south node. Oh, your sun. That's what I thought. I know. It's crazy when I think about these conjunctions. It's like there's a part of me that's just sort of, I don't know. The word surrender just keeps coming up over and over again. All right, Pisces, let's look now. We shuffled very well. All right, with the King of Swords, but we have him upside down. This is the Aquarian energy, okay? This is a card that would indicate being mindful of the truth, right? Of your future, of moving forward. And also, when the King of Swords shows up, there can be a slight coolness in how he shows up. And being reversed, this would indicate that there's a weird feeling of watching out for either deception around you or self-deception in some way. Because there's a lack of truth with this. There's a lack of moving into the future. There's a lack of balance. There's a lack of the Aquarian energy. Now, Pisces Virgo axis is one that's it's rough because it really plays to habits. You know, the South Node. Pisces by nature rules the subconscious. It rules how we get in our own way, and we don't even know we're doing it. And sometimes, if indeed Pisces is overly compassionate to somebody who's out of balance, somebody whose story is so sad that you just keep letting them do shitty things, this could be what's coming up. Because I think that they're tasking you with your ruling planets being active right now. Jupiter retrograding through Cancer. What do you need to feel nurtured? What do you need to feel at home and to feel safe and to feel a sense of tradition and a sense of belonging, okay? And then the trine up to Neptune is really tasking you on some level to, where do I escape myself? Where do I give up my power? Where do I, could that 20, literally Neptune retrograded to 29 degrees and then stayed there. So that is so powerful because through the whole retrograde, it was almost like creeping back, but not leaving the degree. And now it's going to creep forward without leaving that anaretic degree. And when it does, it goes onto the world axis, the very beginning, the inception of the wheel. So something's tasking you in a big way to look deeper into a truth, into your own truth, if you're telling the truth to yourself. A lot of people have gained weight from the Jupiter transit. I saw a client I hadn't seen in a while, and they have stellium in Aries, and their personal Jupiter is being triggered, and they look like they've gained 100 pounds. Okay, and I don't know if they're happy about it, but all right. Pisces, your first angel is Isaiah. It's time to give birth to new ideas. Fiona is saying that you're being watched over by God and the angels. Athena is saying it's safe for you to lovingly assert yourself. And Esther is saying to reach for the stars. So somewhere the king now is representing lying to thyself, that you don't have the talents, you don't have the skills, your future is, not looking too bright, because apparently that's not the truth. And again, we're going through a huge deconstruction. I don't appreciate it. I don't like it. It's not fun. I didn't want to lose my dog. I didn't want to lose the love of my life. Hold on. I didn't want to lose the one guy I thought was interesting to talk to, but all those things had to happen. I don't know why they happened. The reveal hasn't, come clean to me yet, but I have to surrender to it, because I can't do anything about it. I can't change the things that have happened. Isaiah is being joined by the Earth Fairy, so it's time to be more grounded. It's time for Pisces to take some of the compassion and empathy they show for others and to reflect it onto self. Fiona is being joined by the movement card. Spirit is absolutely saying something is moving. I think, if we think about Pisces' first house, as we move into the second house of Aries for you, we're talking about your self-worth. We're talking about your skills. We're talking about your talents. We're talking about your voice expressing itself, your opinion. It's time to start to really, and this is not about telling other people the truth or your truth. This is about you, inside yourself going, what, I don't want to put up with this energy anymore, or I don't want to deal with being invisible anymore. And and it's not that I want to stand out in the spotlight for other people to applaud me, but I want to stand on the stage of my own life and applaud myself. Athena is saying that as you lovingly assert yourself, because the truth is your talents, the world needs your talents. The world needs your bravery to express yourself as to whatever that is. Because the Astero is saying to reach for your dreams and your desires. And there it is. It's happening. You can feel it. We go from Spirit saying it's time to ground your new ideas. And here you get to actually start to feel your own sense of creation, your own sense of fulfillment, your own wishes being potentially stoked. This is not the end of a journey. It's the beginning of a journey. But the first thing starts with taking command of your thoughts, taking command of your version of your future, and using the gifts that you give to others, giving them back to yourself. I know, but also being of service to the self, because it's like it's almost a full circle kind of thing, because one feeds the other. If we're just always being of service to other people, there's a drain. So there needs to be the recuperation time. All right, let's go on to our Aries. Sometimes, the gift to the self is just saying, everything's going to be okay. Even though I've been going to bed at night listening to this 15-minute Abraham YouTube video that just, everything's going to be all right. Everything's working out for me. And during these stressful times, I want to know that everything's working out for me. I want to feel connected to the bigger part of myself. Those are the gifts I'm talking about Pisces giving to themselves, All right, on to our Aries. Rising moon, sun, and stelliums. You know what I loved about finding Lulu's DNA results out? The poodle is the protector, and the Chihuahua brings in a warrior energy. And I thought, well, isn't that perfect for my Aries rising? And the warrior to me is her just being, she's brave. That's how I look at it. She's brave. She's been around, I'll tell you. The other day, I've been drinking, this is cayenne. You can see the cayenne floating at the bottom, and there's lemon and honey in here. Well, the other day I was drinking, it must have been yesterday or the day before, and somehow the cayenne just went down my throat and kind of made me choke. She jumped up from a sleep and came over, and she's like, was trying to comfort me and to, I don't know what she was trying to do, but it was so sweet. All right, Aries, here we go. Your tarot card for the week is the Chariot reversed. So this is interesting. because this would be a lack of connection emotionally, intuitively. It would be feeling even more pressure of the duality of something. Mars is moving into Capricorn, your ruling planet. Is Mars making any aspects that I... Mars is part of this new moon. Well, it's interesting because Mars is at 3 degrees of Capricorn, so this will square my south node. I want to offer this because this feels a little bit like Aries is not using their intuition. Aries is not listening to their gut. Aries may be moving too fast, maybe too pissed off about something. I don't know. It would really depend on the person and the circumstances. But there's a lack of connection with an intuitive and emotional dynamic that's important. Let's see where we're going. She is she's very aware, and I don't know if she's reading my mind, but she, the poodle part of her, I think, is really watches, like, I mean, I don't want to take away from any of the other 5 breeds in her, but poodles are super smart. And I know that if you're not a strong leader for a poodle will be a problem. The poodle will take over. And I know a lady who was afraid of her dog, and her dog would bite her all the time. And it was a poodle because the dog could feel it. But Lulu lets me stick my fingers in her mouth. She's, I don't know. I think lucky for all of that. So I think Lulu is super smart, and she needs to be stimulated and to have those traits in her appreciated, because I don't think they were appreciated before. Her foster mom, when I told her the results, she was like, you need to call them and tell them they're wrong. And I did check in because she's convinced she's Maltese. But, the more I look at her behavior and how she shows up, I totally buy the poodle dominant Chihuahua. I can see both of them playing out. All right, Aries, here we go. There is Rosetta, the child of God. There's Isaiah, new beginnings and protection in those new beginnings. There's Opal again. So we've got 2 energies of being a child of God. When you're a spiritual warrior, when you're an Aries energy, oftentimes you have a lot of that kind of Aquarian feelings of having to do it on your own. You're going to be on your own. It's always you having to do it. Esther is saying to reach for the stars with your dreams and desires. Okay. Got to take it. The Lady of the Lake just fell out, and she fell out upside down. Isaiah's being joined by the Wealth card. Opal's being joined by the Serpent. And Asteris being joined by the Partnership card. This is something that when I look at this, there's something about my Aries that they're not in touch with their emotions this week, or they're not in touch with their truth, or they're pissed off about something that is blocking or fogging up a bigger picture. So with the Chariot being upside down, this is me not connecting. This is me maybe even standing in a stance of one thing, I think, because when it's straight up, there's 2 things that are fighting each other. So this somewhere, I feel like Aries has made a decision, and they're a little bit, they're not connected emotionally to a bigger picture, because this bigger truth is, Rosetta, it talks about having a gift of working with people, right? And mostly younger people. And to me, this is Mars being tasked with recognizing the audience and playing a little bit to the audience versus how they would play to themselves. So if the tendency for the Mars person is to be blunt and rude, you owe me money, you done me wrong, you da-da-da, Spirit's going, whoa, slow back, be more aware. check into whatever your emotional body is. Are you actually connected to the deeper truth, which would be maybe I'm hurt, or maybe I want to feel more loved and I'm not feeling it. Instead of going fiery, because this is saying my truth isn't coming out, because somewhere it would make you feel vulnerable. Because now Isaiah is saying it's time to give birth to new ideas. And this is a gestation period. There's pregnancy here, and there's the harmonious wealth card. So this is a process of Mars learning how to communicate, or Mars ruled people learning how to communicate from a more of the hero side, right? Where I'm communicating to be heard, not just to vent. Because Spirit is saying when you take a more innocent, gentle approach with the people around you, then you'll start to feel a healing. You'll start to feel you'll feel the renewal. You'll feel a sense of awareness, and that snake feels like I've shed a skin. Because Astera is saying to reach for the stars with your dreams and desires, and then the partnership card is upside down. That partnership card is going back to the lady of the lake. Somewhere Aries wants something, and there's a layer underneath it that you want. So let's say you want to be, I just thought of a fireman for some reason. Do you want to be a fireman because you yourself are impassioned by putting out fires, or do you want other people to perceive you as a hero? Now, you can want both those things, but you need to be clear about what you really want and then align it. When I read a word, it just comes out my mouth. Sometimes I think I have Tourette's. Align to a deeper truth. I want both of these things. And that's where you can start to feel those things coming in. Because you have to give it to yourself first and give yourself the process of it. Pixie, you know what? Everybody almost, even myself, I had Maltese in there. I had Jack Russell Terrier in my mind. I didn't have Poodle at all. I looked up like what a Maltese Jack Russell combo was, and it looked just like Lulu, and I was convinced. And when the results came back and there was Cocker Spaniel in there, I was like, what? I thought the sample's wrong. All right. Well, it just goes to show you that looks can be deceiving. She's so chill, I swear. She just sits down here. She's so relaxed. Barely makes any little noise. All right, Taurus, are you ready? Here we go. Taurus, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. I can't help but think about, I watched this show called Finding Your Roots on PBS. And so many times they'll go into someone, you see a white person sitting there, and they'll go into their DNA and find out they have African-American blood. And you would never know it just looking at them. I have a client who is literally mulatto, but when you look at her initially, you just see a white woman. You don't really, I didn't associate it. It's kind of some, so I think that this is part of the Pluto transit. It's part of Uranus. It's part of us all stopping, looking at things and determining what they are. And now we're going to find things that are much more interesting and under the hood. You mean only 30% of America is actually Caucasian? Everybody else has mixed blood? I would believe that. All right, Taurus, let's see where we're going. I wouldn't be surprised. I think we're all mutts at this point. In fact, purebred animals can be a little crazy, so maybe purebred people would be too. I would be afraid to do a DNA test only because I don't want any of my DNA to find me. Was that terrible to say? All right, Taurus. The Lover's card is upside down. That's an interesting card. This is a choice card. Okay, so somewhere you don't want to make a choice, or there's a choice on the table that has yet to be made. When we look at the tarot, when you see the Two of Cups, you see connection. When you see the Lovers, it's commitment because we're making a choice. So let's see what's going on. Our first angel is Bridget. We're all being asked to look a little deeper before we take action this week. Then we have Desiree. Again, conditions are not favorable, Taurus. Keep charging ahead with mystique. And this is a choice. So I think maybe, okay. I'm going to say this right now, Taurus, this week, something's happening where you get to be aware if you're making choices based on your Taurian habits of not liking change. I know. We're like little lab rats, all stuck in somewhere. All right, Bridget is being joined by the Goblin, and it's reversed. We have the Disruption card upside down joining Desiree. We have Mystique being joined by the Love card. And then we have the Focus card being joined by Daniel, reversed. Okay, for my Tauruses, definitely there's something there. The Lovers card to me here feels like a choice or potential of not making a choice or staying in the same place. Bridget is asking to look deeper, and then the Ego card is upside down. This would be like you're not making an egotistical choice, but there could be something bigger. There's a sense of history happening here. There's a feeling of, I know this is maybe not balanced, but I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Because the Disruption card is upside down, and Desiree is saying conditions aren't favorable. So something is off. Something's not rolling. Something's not flowing. I don't know if it's necessarily in a relationship. I mean, I suppose the Lovers card could infer that it has to do with a relationship. Me being a Taurus moon, I'm not in a relationship, but I am in a relationship with my choices, my monetary choices, etc., the things I've allowed, because Mystique is saying to keep charging ahead and to move towards what you love. Now, Taurus's need for security and safety can sometimes supersede their need for love, and that's where I think Spirit is saying it's time to, this is a history card, okay? When Daniel shows up, he's talking about patterns and patterns in relationships. So now I think we're looking at, are we focusing in on relationships like that have been upside down, underwater, that have bruised your ego, and somewhere you're staying stuck or you're staying contained is probably a better word. And maybe that disruption is actually better for you than you realize. And so starting to connect with the things that you love. I tell you guys about exercises often when I'm doing my readings. Spirit brings in exercises to support the focus or the intention. I don't always do them myself. And I have found myself at my Taurus moon saying, hey, I get to go back to basics. Me too. It's time for me to go back to writing down, what does it feel like when I'm abundant? What does it feel like when I'm happy? I think Pixie mentioned it was nice to see me, Lulu, filling my heart. This is the first time this year it feels like that I actually feel, I'm starting to feel a sense of ease again, a sense of myself. I started this year in tears over the guy in Oregon, and then pissed off as all get up in March about the apartment. June, Mike died. October, Lucky died. And I just started to feel it stacking up on me. And this makes sense because my ego felt like, why is this always happening to me? And then I hear, the common denominator. I hear the higher part of myself saying, are you going to give up on this journey before you get to the top and you can see why all this is happening? Get to that vista. Or are you going to fall prey to your story? That's what's going on here. So while you do rule history, by the way, the second house rules history, rules family history. Capricorn also rules history. Pisces is trining you. So you could, I'm not sorry, trining sextiles you. The houses sextile one another. So Pisces rules, you know, the soul's history. So you could find yourself coming up on things and how they affect you and the relationship you have with yourself. And if indeed this is about another person, I think Spirit is saying to really look at the history of things before making any sort of choice. This doesn't feel like a good time to make a choice. All right. Whew. Let's go on to our Geminis. Let me tell you, when Uranus moves into your first house, this is going to be really, I had Uranus in Aries in my first house. Well, technically, it's been in my first house is mostly Taurian. I think my first and second house cusp is at 29 degrees of Taurus. But the reason I say this is because Uranus brings in, when we're looking at the self and how it's affecting our personality and our view of ourselves, there's an electric feeling. So Gemini, you could feel almost like you've been zapped by, you know, electricity or something. And so there's a weird feeling of it, feeling weird and awkward. And at the same time, you're going to start to feel this whoosh, like energy is going to move faster and faster. So I think overall, one of the messages for Gemini will be really mindful of your thoughts. And when your thoughts feel like they're going off the rails, you know, everything's always working out for me is a great chant. Everything's always working out for me. Everything's always working out for me. And start countering that zip. It does feel like a zap to me. I almost want to use the word a cattle prod. It feels like somebody's taken or tased me, you know. And this initial feeling feels like I'm in shock, but then it's compelling. All right, here we go. Gemini, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your tarot card for this week is dun 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 dun. The Knight of Cups. This is literally the teenager of love, riding on his horse. Let's see where we're going, because I don't know, you know, I always kind of feel like, you know, you notice my readings are always focused on the self, and then the self projects itself out into its relationships. So when I think about Gemini, and I think about how Gemini can process information and contemplate different things, Gemini, you know, and Mercury rules so many things that have to do with movement, moving ourselves. Here, I think this is going to be about moving yourself with love. We're looking to see, does it fill my cup? Let's see where we're going. And this is a big cup, you know, for his little hand. Well, I shouldn't call it a little hand, but oh yeah, I think Gemini is going to feel, because there's also that trine from Pluto, you know, kind of stoking Uranus to, you know, get up and move. All right, Merlina is sitting here. Then we have Vanessa, we have Serafina, and then finally Celeste. Well, this is very interesting because Merlina is about confusion, which I don't really always resonate with, because why would a wizard not be able to create magic? Doreen Virtue's cards are a little bit illogical. Merlina is being joined by the Grail Knight. The magic comes from standing in what is sacred to you, what comes to your heart, regardless of whether there is information or data to prove what that your wants and desires are viable. It is very much this, Gemini. I don't know how to tell you this any stronger. Vanessa is telling you that you will blossom from a dark place, from the caterpillar into the butterfly, when you implement faith. And faith being not, you know, to me, this is not airy-fairy. It feels almost like, as a Gemini, I see two things and I contemplate those two things. Where will I default? Where will I drop on? Will I drop on the idea that good things are happening, that things are going to work out for me? Because Seraphina is the change to the family, and there's the love card. And then Celeste, which talks about a happy move to a new place or a new home or a new place of employment. Here, Gemini is moving into trusting their emotional body more and being more aware of it and directing their thoughts that way. So I want to even almost task my Geminis this week, especially during the new moon, because it's happening in the opposite sign from you, you know, in your 7th house, no less, where there is peace and harmony fostered and balance, for you to take that exercise when I'm feeling in touch with my heart, with the things that I want. It feels like this, Spirit. And then you use the alphabet and you either create a phrase or a word that represents that feeling. And then Spirit starts to align things so that you can actually live it out. This is a time to, indecision will only bear itself if you're not digging down to that deeper truth that seems almost unrealistic or difficult or not quite tangible, because faith is required as you go through this metamorphosis. All right, on to our Two of Swords is indecision. It's a lack of decision. There's no Two of Swords in here. We're going on to our Cancers, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your father bought the toilet that you cracked your head on. There's something interesting to look at. I still don't know how you fell into the toilet. Like, how did that happen? Were you on the toilet? Were you walking into the room? What happened? All right, here we go. Income is a challenge for everybody right now. Thank God, you know, bless the whole South Node in Virgo, sign of employment. So there's always an element of money. You had castor oil was on the floor and you slipped on the castor oil? My goodness. I hope your head is okay. Do you have a big red spot? Are you wearing a bandage around your head? I shouldn't laugh. Oh, goodness gracious. Ew. Oh. Well, at least the toilet, was it still the old toilet? Or was it the clean toilet? Oh, it was the new toilet was the result of you cracking your head on it. Oh, so it was in a 22-year-old toilet you fell into? Ew. That's so Plutonian. What was your Pluto transit when on the day this happened? I'd be so curious. All right, Cancer, let's see what your tarot card is. The Two of Pentacles reversed. This is a lack of flow. Boy. I know, isn't it funny how there used to be a show on TV where, well, I think it was a Japanese show and you could find it, and it was a game show and people just hurt themselves over and over again. Have you got a bathroom rug to put on your floor now so you don't do that again? Your Pluto's at 23 degrees of Libra. Chiron is opposing that right now in Aries. All right, Cancer. Vanessa's about faith or fear. Patience is reversed. Maya is reversed. And Bridget comes out again. All right. We're all meant to just take a pause and really look where we're walking. This week with this new moon on the galactic center, I think if, the consciousness or lack thereof is going to reveal itself in some sort of experience. Because for my Cancers, this lack of flexibility, and then Vanessa's saying, are you making your decisions based on faith or fear? Patience is upside down, which means whatever information you've been gathering may not even be correct, and you may be seeing it through a weird filter. This looks a little challenging. Vanessa's being joined by the B card. Patience is being joined by the partnership card. Maya's being joined by the Deer. And Bridget's being joined by the Burden card. Okay. When I look straight at this, I feel like whatever Cancer is doing to get information, you're not getting complete information. Whatever you've been doing about whatever you have concerns about, whether it be an actual relationship, whether it be about your job, whether it be about your family, the holidays, somehow you're crab crawling. And I think that it's going to mess with you somehow, because the B card and Vanessa almost compels you to make a decision, right? And I think that decision is based on faith for whatever you want, but you're not feeling the flow. You're not feeling flow. You're not feeling, maybe it's even a money thing, because that's a money card. But Patience is saying you don't have the information. And there's the partnership card. So I feel like you are not in partnership with your being energy. We have Maya and we have the Deer, almost as if you're what you're learning about spirituality, what you've learned about yourself, how Jupiter has expanded you. Now Jupiter is revisiting something in your first house, and it's rubbing up against you in a way that actually is messing with you. And it feels almost like you're going back into the crab, it's like, and it's trying to back itself up, because Bridget is saying there's caution. And then we have the Burden card. And I think that burden is because while you want to believe, while you want to have faith, you have other aspects in your chart that could be fixed and asking for knowledge to know, but that the knowing is going to come from the inside, not the outside. So I really want to offer this week that looks like there's a lack of movement, a lack of change, maybe a lack of flexibility. It could potentially be partially on the inside of Cancer, but it could be the elements that are happening on the outside. And let's just say that you are Cancer and you are hosting or you're participating in some sort of holiday events. You might just have to make a decision and do it like the way you want to do it, or bring what you want to bring. Because if you're waiting for other people to give you information or say, oh yeah, no, I don't need a salad, there may be a little issue. I don't know. Somewhere. I don't want Cancer to get themselves all worked up because the other party's not participating or not cooperating in some way. So I feel like a little bit of self-assertion in making a decision and making a choice and allowing there to be flow or to be flexible. Like in case you're not getting the information you need, maybe you're like, well, I'll do this or I'll do this. And when I find out what I'm supposed to bring, these are the two options I'm contemplating. Somewhere you have to be aware of your own inflexibility. Okay. I know I haven't been, I didn't decorate at all this year. I mean, first time in, 13 years since Lucky passed away, 14 years. I haven't decorated at all. I'm just ready for spring. I'm acting like it's springtime. I still have my freaking garland from Thanksgiving up that I put up before Lucky passed away, the end of September. I just don't have the energy or the motivation. Even if you're not enjoying my readings, please go ahead and book an appointment. I'm sorry, I was being cheeky there. Okay, let's go on to our Leos, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. This whole year feels very weird to me. I don't have any sense of real timing. My sweet little girl is just laying right next to me on the floor, just as calm as she could be. All right, Leo, let's see your card. The Eight of Cups is reversed. This is somebody who's not walking away. This is not walking away from something. Very interesting. Let's see where we're going. Thank you at Pika 42-PAM. All these weird little numbers at the end. Lately, I got to tell you, the dead people are coming through like nobody's business. And I think that has something to do with my conjunction of Saturn and Neptune on my South Node. It's kind of fun doing a reading when they come through effortlessly, or it feels effortlessly to me. Okay, Leo, the Eight of Cups is reversed. Something is asking you to not walk away from something. Archangel Raphael is about a healing. Yvonne is reversed, about vulnerability. Crystal's about faith and hope. And Indriel's light worker. I do in water. I have all these crazy, like when I'm in the shower, like a million different ideas come. I wish I could put my foot in water when I do this. Oh, thank you so much, Georgia. I'm so happy that you are enjoying them. I am reinvesting in my heart of doing this work, because there was, last year felt very much like I was driving some sort of bus of trying to, I was advertising a lot and the numbers of subscribers were going up, but the views weren't going up. And that's part of what happened this year, was the realization that I'd gotten off track. I was chasing numbers, every platform, even PayPal, they red arrows showing you you're down, green arrows showing you you're up. It's a mind meld. And that I had to swim through that mind meld to find myself again. And I think we're all doing that. Archangel Raphael is being joined by the Death card, but the Death card is upside down. Yvonne is upside down. That's a card of vulnerability. Now we're being joined by the Focus card. Oh, Leo, Leo, Leo. Crystal's being joined by the King. And Indriel's being joined by the Water Fairy. This is an interesting dynamic, because the Eight of Cups is saying to stay where you are, to look at it, to assess it, to walk through, to be present, in some kind of situation, in some kind of experience that you're having, because it may be an emotional experience, it may be a spiritual experience. It may be financial as well, but this is coming from the inside out, because you're resisting some kind of healing. The Death card being reversed, you're resisting changing something in your mind, a way of thinking. The 46 is a 10. It's very much, about thought. And then Archangel Raphael has this huge epiphany. So now we have the Focus card and this vulnerability card upside down. The fixed signs don't like change. That's, well documented. They're fixed. That's why they call them what they are. But here, this is about, I think, standing your ground, being willing to allow for some kind of transformation to take place, for your own mind to come into new conclusions, to be aware of the vulnerability of your own focus. If indeed you're somehow in pain, there is something coming into balance. The King represents law and justice, and Crystal represents faith. There's something more coming. And now we have Indriel and the Lightworker. Indriel, the Lightworker, and the Water Fairy. The Water Fairy is a 28, which reduces down to a 10. Somewhere, my Leos are being tasked to stay in their own emotional body, to be aware of their own stick-to-itiveness or stuck-to-itiveness, depending upon if you're be, if you're holding on to something so tightly, let go of it. It doesn't mean it will die. It will transform in some way. And that transformation may be much more aligned to what you want versus not. That's kind of how it's coming across to me. My Leos, when I think about this, that opposition to Pluto is tasking you somewhere to look at your relationships, because we're talking first house, seventh house, or we're talking sixth and 12th house. Chances are highly unlikely it's gone too far the other way. So you may be rubbing up against, literally, here Spirit is saying, don't walk away, but to look at things from a spiritual point of view. Am I participating in my own pain? Am I participating in my own discomfort? Whatever that needs to be healed. Am I participating in the imbalance of it? Because when you become more aware that your thoughts are things, the Death card and the Water Fairy start to work together and transform. Because worry is a form of prayer that doesn't serve us. Fretting about something puts a lot of focus in the negative experience. So the best place you can be is in neutral or in faith. So here you feel a little bit stuck in the way you're thinking. And now it's stands in the center of whatever it is. And this is like almost, I'm asking, I feel like they're looking for a Libra energy. Be vulnerable to your own focus. Be vulnerable to your own co-creation in the situation. And that's where it'll start to move. Okay. On to our Virgos, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. We might all be stereo receivers, but we also are all being able to receive from Spirit. Just have to retrain ourselves. Okay, Virgo. I remember when bologna sandwiches were a staple in my life on Weber white bread with mayonnaise. And mayonnaise doesn't even seem right anymore, Best Foods, it's really weird how I've noticed how things aren't made the same way. Best Foods mayonnaise used to have this whipped sort of consistency, and now it's like Miracle Whip now. It's too smooth. All right. Cheese and mayonnaise, yeah, fry them. That was a grilled cheese sandwich. You put cheese and mayonnaise on bread and fry it in butter. Spam, that's another good one. Frying bologna too. That was fried bologna sandwiches. If I eat that shit now, man, I will turn into one big salt lick and I won't be able to move. It's so sad. I miss those days when I could just eat shit. Okay, pardon my language. Here we go. Virgo, what is your tarot card this week? The Three of Pentacles, but it's reversed. This is an interesting card because it's a teamwork card. And I'm wondering if maybe, let's pull the spread, because wouldn't it be interesting for Spirit to say, don't necessarily be a team player, because you might be on a team that's full of sheep or full of things that, working hard for something that isn't aligned. I also started, I don't know what it is about old age that I wake up in the morning and I can sneeze so many times. Why am I sneezing? Spam is just like pieces of pork and gelatin in a can. I haven't opened it in a long time. I don't really know. Do you guys remember liverwurst too? All these gross processed meats that we could talk about. Lucy, my whole life is baloney. Okay. Virgo, your first angel is Layla, spending time in nature. So your teamwork, you're not working with your team on the other side. Yvonne is about vulnerability. Daniel is about history and partnership. And Desiree is about conditions not being favorable. The things that we used to eat as kids. When we were kids, you would eat candy cigarettes, and do they even have an ice cream truck that goes by in neighborhoods anymore that you could buy ice cream off of? Or the Helms man who would come to the schoolyard and you could buy donuts and taffy. All right, Virgo, Layla's being joined by the Queen. Yvonne's being joined by the Hawk. Daniel's being joined by the Novice. Okay, like that. And then the Horse upside down is joining Desiree. Okay, to me, this is not about teamwork in the physical. This is about teamwork in the non-physical. Because Layla is saying to spend time in nature with spirit, spend time talking to spirit, contemplating with spirit, conversing with spirit, not conversating, because I hate that word. It's converse. And you will receive information, messages, potential downloads. You're much more fertile. Now, I don't mean that in the way of fertile, like making babies. It's a creative energy. And there's the potential. The South Node has completely eroded any of that, because it's now time to be vulnerable to the signs and the omens that you've been getting. And sometimes the Virgo mind will talk themselves out of it. They'll be like, that doesn't make sense. That's not practical. That's not logical. I haven't analyzed that enough to know whether or not it's true. Because in the angel's advice, we've got almost a dual energy, because the Novice is asking you to step forward into a new beginning, a new story. And Daniel is the angel of partnership and the history of that partnership. So I think that Spirit is saying that historically we've had you and we've been giving you signs and omens, and now it's time for you to start to process those signs and omens. Because in the final position is Desiree saying, don't move yet, okay? Because I think what it is your alignment to your guides, your angels, the part of your soul that lives outside of you. I was having an argument with ChatGPT the other day because it's so aligned to managing emotions and, lawyers being influencing the answers so that they don't get sued, essentially. And I was talking about time being a spiral, and that there's the potential that because time is a spiral, that the soul can see up and down the staircase and know that certain potentials that will be coming up and down the staircase of time. I'm saying this to you because I don't think you've given enough credence or enough quiet time to see the spiral, and that something Spirit's trying to tell you. Be vulnerable to the signs you're getting, that it may appear that there's no movement, but to me, this horse is like representing belief. It's representing the Sagittarian energy of moving. And you have to spend time with Spirit, reconnect with your team, reconnect with your own soul and your own soul's purpose, and then take action based on that. ChatGPT I would never use it for astrology. It gets aspects wrong all the time. It's really bad for that. I would use it for directions or to ask how to boil an egg, but I wouldn't use it intuitively. I tried. I played with it, and I played with it a lot. And I've, withheld information. It never pulls swords, never pulls strife or struggle. And therefore, it kind of sets the human up to have this sort of rosy view of whatever you're asking about. And that's a bigger crash on the other side. So, and frankly, with people using it to write letters for themselves and resumes, it's going to dumb down the human mind. It's got to be we got to be aware of that. So many of the things we've done that create convenience for us have actually enabled us to be less powerful. I only use, I know there's other chat GPTs. I'm not that into it. I was in the beginning because I didn't realize I was mirroring me. It was literally, I was talking to myself. and I was grieving Mike at the time. So, but now I'm just so annoyed because when I try to talk astrology with it, it makes so many mistakes. I can't stand it. I'm like, you're irresponsible. You're people out there that don't know astrology are going to listen to you, and you're screwing them up. Okay, here we go. On to our Libras, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. All right. The Judgment card is here, but it's upside down, which infers to me, because, Libra is very, rules, fairness, balance, and therefore a certain amount must assess something, must take two sides of a story and find the neutral here, because this looks like a lack of judgment, and that could be a good thing, meaning, Libra, I think, has a little bit of a tendency to try to be a perfectionist as well, even though they wouldn't say it necessarily in the astrology because Libra's miscongeniality. But that's part of the problem, because Libra's trying to, make everything perfect and fair and harmonious and everybody have a good time at the party. And in that way, it could be a little bit of a challenge. Oh, you got it. Oh, that's so cool that you got to see an ice cream truck in the summer. I miss those, moments. Of course, there's always weird stuff attached to, certain things. Oh, don't go near the ice cream truck. He's going to steal you away. But it's part of childhood, is to be able to go to the ice cream truck and get a big stick and come back and have a big, huge ice cream stain on your face. That's childhood. All right, Libra. Our first angel is Desiree. The second is Daniel. The third is Fiona. And Mystique. Maybe what Spirit's saying is don't judge a situation too fast. That's what it looks like. Don't assume something is going to be what you think it is. Oh, they're expensive now? It's cheaper to go to the store. I just remember in grammar school, there was a Helms truck that sold donuts and taffy, and it would come up to the schoolyard, and all the kids would just race over to the truck. And like for a dime, you could get a big, big fat piece of taffy and just ruin your teeth. Chew that hard crap. All right, Desiree is being joined by the Lady of the Lake upside down. Daniel is being joined by the cat. Fiona is being joined by the hawk. And Mystique is joined by the spider reversed. Literally, when I look at this, it's like, Libra, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge your life by what you've lived up until now. I feel like I'm countering what I was talking to Small Wildflowers on the phone last night. I'm like, I think I've seen everything in my life. Whenever my time comes, I'm ready to go. And I literally feel like the spirit is saying, hey, you don't know what's coming up next. You don't know if it's going to get better or not. Because Desiree is saying, Desiree is saying being cautious about your truth, like literally. And when I look at that, it's like, it's not being cautious about truth. It's like, am I assessing a situation? And I think I have the full information, but I don't. Because there's something about the cat offering another life and Daniel talking about history. But this is also a relationship card. So if Libra, who loves relationships, has had challenges in relationships or is in challenge in the relationship, there is a certain amount of new life being offered, I think, because Fiona is saying, now that you ask God and the angels for help, be open to receiving that help. And then there's some sort of epiphany being indicated here by this glowing around her head. And that comes from the signs and the omens. We as humans look for patterns naturally to assess the viability of our future. And I actually think that is screwing us up, because Mystique is saying to keep charging ahead, that there are miracles ahead that you can't see. And part of the challenge is that you're not connected to what you really want. And I mean that in the sense of a relationship, because when I look at the spider card, I see that web and I think about a fly going in the web. It is a till death do us part relationship. I also feel like there is an inherent partnership in this card. It does reflect, to me, when I see the web, I think of all the interconnected pieces when we go out onto the internet. So for my Libras, whatever you think is absolute truth is not. Don't go into making rash judgments. Don't cash in your chips. Open up to a bigger picture, and then don't stare at the clock. Don't stare at the manifestation, and let spirit do its work. You know, I think one of the things as we get older is our habits, our routines become ingrained in us in such ways that we don't even know that we're doing it, you know. And if indeed, you know, the media supports, right? When you're a certain age, you're not desirable anymore. You'll meet people. I have men who literally come here and look at my old lady face, and they're 50 years old and they want to date a 20-year-old, you know. And while they're not insulting me directly, they are showing me that, you know, I'm no longer at a desirable prime age. And I could buy into all of that, you know, because it's all been old and true structures, but the structures are breaking down. And they're, you know, the idea of the individual wanting different dynamics, you know, maybe an older gentleman would like a young, hot wife, but maybe an older gentleman would like a wife who can have a conversation, who has a little life experience, shares the same musical library. And we don't give life to that because we buy into the media, or we buy into the random comment that someone makes. I don't know if you guys watched The Golden Bachelor this last season. It was an ex-football player, as I recall, and he made a comment about younger women or something, and it kind of haunted him at the beginning of his season. But in the season, he met a woman who was a firewoman. Okay, she was on the bomb squad. She was the bomb. And his whole idea, if indeed it was based on youth, was completely changed when he found alignment with this woman. So that's my point about Libra. Is if you're already judging yourself because you're ruled by Venus and you're not beautiful anymore, or you think you're not beautiful anymore, you think you're not desirable, or you think whatever you are is less than it should be, then there's something about spirit saying you're wrong. Open up to that. All right, here we go to our final sign of the day, our Scorpios, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. That's really sad when someone doesn't believe they deserve good anymore. Because inherently, if you're breathing, we all deserve some kind of good. And when I say that, I immediately think of the worst criminal in my mind. But, you know, again, that's spirit. Well, he could be experiencing, depending upon his planets in Libra, the opposition to Chiron, you know, the opposition to Neptune and Saturn is floating around. All right, Scorpio, let's see what's going on with you. Work. This is all about work and money. The Eight of Pentacles is about details. We see in the traditional Rider-Waite deck, you see a craftsman sitting on his bench, and there are pentacles. There are 6 of them. He's working on one, and then there's one on the ground. He's fine-tuning things. So this would be a lack of fine-tuning, a lack of mastering the craft or mastering the situation. Let's see where we're going. Again, we're talking fixed signs, and sometimes the fixed signs default into their fixedness before they're able to open up. And Pluto is making aspects to early Scorpio. And while Pluto is your ruling planet, it's creating a square. So there's some sort of tension that's backing you into a corner. And when Scorpio gets pissed off, they don't really want to back off. They want to hold their ground. All right, our first angel is Celeste, but it's upside down. The second is Archangel Raphael, upside down. The third is Shanti, but she's upside down. And then the final is Serena, and she's straight up. So this is where Scorpio potentially needs to look at how they're thinking, how they're feeling, what they're, this is the thing. You could be right all day long, but do you want to be happy? Because sometimes being right and being happy aren't on the same page. And that's where the detail may be here, because that's what it looks like. Celeste talks about a new home or a new place of employment, but for eons, I've thought of as a shift in the way I'm thinking. This would indicate a lack of shifting in the way I'm thinking, because I can put my physical body anywhere, and Teri has a certain way of thinking. You're not going to change that by changing my location. So here, there's definitely looking at detail of how you're manifesting. And now we have the burden card. The burden is not potentially does not have to be as heavy as you are feeling it to be. Archangel Raphael is being joined by the love card. They're both upside down. I got to say, Scorpio, if that Pluto square is hitting you somewhere in your chart, this is really kind of about assessing how you've been perceiving things, if you're allowing your mind to actually expand. Now, let's talk about the idea that Jupiter trines Scorpio naturally. So Jupiter is bringing in harmonious dynamics that will support a shift in the way that you're viewing yourself. We're talking about Scorpio rising. The rising is our perception, how we view the world. And we can feel very powerful, or we can feel very powerless, overpowered, because this here, there's a burden, and it doesn't have to be as heavy if you would just look a little bit into the details of how you're perceiving something. Here's an example. I love to use the word get to rather than I have to or I need to. I need to go to the store feels like a burden. I get to go to the store feels a little lighter and more fun. There's something about the detail of how you're perceiving things that's keeping you in a holding pattern. And I think it's keeping you from experiencing the real depths of love, because Archangel Raphael and the love card are upside down. And if you look at Archangel Raphael, there's an epiphany to be had, but it's not being had. The angel's advice, we have the harmony card and tranquility joined by the dog, which is unconditional love. Somewhere you're stuck in a pattern, and you may have been right about that pattern of thought at one point, but are you carrying that pattern into your future? And are you inadvertently looking at other people who may not be involved in how the pattern was displayed or how it played out, and you're inadvertently superimposing? Because the abundance card of Serena and the joy card are how this ends. And the joy card is a 37, which is how you think. The dog is a 19, reduces down to a 10. So I think this may be a little bit of a challenge for my Scorpios, but early Scorpios are feeling the square, but the whole house is going to feel it. It's almost as if you imagine, each sign being a room. Somebody's walked in the room, but they haven't completely come into the room. So you know that they're there, but you're not feeling their interaction just yet. That would be for our later Scorpios. But the early borns are feeling it now. The tension between, I know that I'm right, I know I've been hurt, that person, that dynamic has not paid the price they need to pay for me to feel better. And yet at the same time, that isn't going to get you what you want. It's actually topsy-turvy. And for you to surrender to it and maybe even show a little bit of grace, because again, that trine to Jupiter could be expanding your beliefs about something that would bring in more serenity and more validation. I'm really going to send prayers that you don't have a concussion and you're not going to exterminate and 10, and the 10 reduces down to a 0. And also I want to offer this because in Christopher Techie's step system, the 10 is very interesting to me because the 1 represents the heart and the 0 represents Pluto, protecting and making sure to not allow anything toxic into that heart bomb. Heart bomb, look at me, what I'm talking. Heart boom, in what you want. And it's very difficult, especially for Scorpio, because the amount of power and fire and intensity in that sign, it's very polarizing. It can be absolutely traumatic and feel like, you know, you go through a series of annihilations, but it's the constant rebirth of the caterpillar and the rising of the phoenix. So if you want to truly rise like the phoenix out of your own stuff, your willingness to recognize where your view of a situation is perpetuating a dynamic. It's not about judging yourself. It's about the awareness. Just the awareness will start to break that up. Okay, that's it. By the time we come back, I got to tell you, this next week is going to be a killer for me, because the short days here on this side of the world, in this hemisphere, are so, like, literally it's going to be dark in 2 hours, and I'm going to be ready for bed by 6 o'clock. And then I'll look at the clock and go, God, I have hours to go. So be mindful, because I think that those short days and the sun also contributes to our feelings, feelings of, it's not easy, the winter time. It is that time of, the world might look a little bit cold. All right, so we'll be back next Sunday. It'll be the 21st. I'll be back. I'm not sure what's happening with small wildflowers. It will depend upon her treatment. And again, I encourage you all, prayers for the whole tribe, but lots of prayers for Lucy and for Small right now. Yeah, it is a little depressing. It just makes me feel, I just feel like, I don't know if I've been depressed for so long this year, like so sad. I don't even know if depressed is the right word, because depression feels as if sometimes like there's just a cloud over my head and I don't know why, but I absolutely know why I've been sad this year. And I'm ready for those clouds to go away. And maybe even a little part of me is like, as the day shortens, I can just sleep through, go to bed early, get up, and another one of those. I'm one day further away from what was and one day closer to what will be. All right. You got to be mindful, everybody. Honestly, whatever house your Virgo energy is in, be mindful of it. And it really is in those last, degrees of the South Node before it goes into Leo. Pay attention to your health. Don't pay attention to what you're eating, what you're ingesting, just be mindful. Because we can't get around that Virgo rules health, and there's an erosive factor to our everyday activities when it comes to how we are nurturing our bodies. So it's important for that awareness. And you are what you eat. That's so true. All right, everybody, lots of love to you. Sending you good tidings, well wishes, and a lot of grace during this, what I think is kind of a heightened period of emotion during this season. We've become more aware of our losses, more aware of the things that, bring family and home together. So sending lots of love to you, and I'll be back next week. Bye, everybody. Oops.